Ethan Parker had always believed love was a distant dream, one that belonged to everyone else but him. At 28, wheelchair-bound after a car accident 3 years ago, he had mastered independence yet carried a quiet ache for connection. His apartment was neat, practical, filled with books and soft lighting, reflecting a life carefully controlled. But control, he often realized, could not protect the heart. Today, he arrived at Rosewood Weddings, his modest job as a wedding coordinator's assistant giving him both purpose and proximity to fleeting happiness. The hall buzzed with pre-ceremony chaos, florists arranging blooms, caterers rushing trays, bridesmaids fussing over gowns. Ethan maneuvered his wheelchair smoothly between the flurry of activity, noting every detail. He had learned that in weddings, precision could mask the chaos of real life, something he secretly envied. That it was there he first saw Lucas Bennett. Lucas moved with effortless charm, tall and broad-shouldered, his tailored suit hinting at wealth but not ostentation. Ethan noticed the small details, a designer watch peeking from under a cuff, polished shoes that caught the light. Lucas wasn't just handsome, he carried a quiet confidence that demanded attention without needing to speak. And for reasons Ethan could not articulate, the man's eyes seemed to linger, even in the crowded room. Ethan's heart quickened, a familiar flutter he hadn't felt in years. He reminded himself that this was impossible. Lucas was polished, worldly, and clearly accustomed to admiration. Ethan was, ordinary, bound to his chair, cautious in every interaction. Yet something about Lucas's gaze, warm, yet curious, made Ethan feel seen in a way he had long forgotten. "Ethan, could you check the seating arrangement for table 5, called Miriam, the head coordinator." Ethan nodded and rolled over, keeping Lucas in the corner of his vision. Lucas's attention didn't waver, he moved closer under the guise of assisting with decor. "You have a remarkable eye for details," Lucas said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "I wouldn't have noticed that the ribbon on the archway was slightly crooked." Ethan blinked, momentarily flustered. Compliments weren't new, but sincerity in them was rare. "Thanks. I guess I've had a lot of practice," he replied, attempting casualness while his pulse spiked. Their conversation lingered on minor things, flowers, lighting, table numbers, but beneath it simmered something unspoken, a gentle spark of intrigue. Ethan caught himself smiling, a subtle shift that hadn't occurred in months. Lucas's attention, while polite, carried a quiet insistence, a focus that felt dangerously personal. As the afternoon progressed, Ethan found himself drawn into Lucas's orbit. Lucas insisted on helping him adjust a centerpiece, brushing against his hand in a fleeting, almost accidental touch. Ethan felt warmth rush through him, mingling with a nervous anticipation. He was painfully aware of the physical divide, the wheelchair, but Lucas treated him with ease, as though the chair did not define him. Yet Ethan's mind whispered caution. People like Lucas were used to attention, to admiration that came easily. And Ethan, he was often overlooked, invisible in ways that hurt more than they protected. Still, there was a sincerity in Lucas's demeanor, a rare openness that made Ethan's heart ache with possibility. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the floral arrangements, Lucas leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There's something I need to show you, away from the crowd. Just for a few minutes." Ethan hesitated, a swirl of curiosity and trepidation battling in his chest. He wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the safety of his carefully constructed boundaries. But the warmth in Lucas's eyes, the promise of a connection he had almost forgotten, drew him in. Rolling alongside Lucas toward the garden, Ethan felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. This moment, fleeting and quiet, promised something extraordinary. And though he didn't yet understand the depth of what was coming, he could feel the first threads of change weaving into his life. As they disappeared behind the arching hedges, the wedding hall's noise faded into the background. Ethan's heart pounded, not from the wheelchairs or the bustling event, but from the possibility that this day might be the beginning of something he had long believed was impossible. Ethan Parker hadn't planned on returning to the community pool so soon, yet the following evening he found himself standing outside the glass doors again. He told himself it was for the exercise, for the clarity that water brought, for the peace he craved. But as he entered the airy room and scanned the shimmering surface of the pool, he knew the truth. Some part of him was hoping Liam Hart would be there, and he was. Liam sat at the pool's edge, adjusting his goggles with an easy calm. When he noticed Ethan walking in, his lips curved into a warm, familiar smile, one that felt far too comforting for someone Ethan had spoken to only briefly the day before. Back again already? Liam asked as Ethan approached. I guess I needed another break from everything, Ethan replied, placing his towel on the bench. Swimming helps. Liam nodded, his expression understanding in a way that made Ethan's chest tighten. I get that completely. It's why I started coming here almost every evening. The admission surprised Ethan. Something about Liam's poised demeanor made it difficult to imagine him needing refuge from anything. They slipped into the pool, side by side but not too close, gliding through the water at their own steady pace. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, it was almost grounding, as though simply sharing space with another person softened the edges of Ethan's loneliness. After a few laps, Liam rested his arms on the pool's edge, his breathing measured. Ethan swam up beside him. So, Liam said, tapping his fingers lightly against the tile, how are you finding the city so far? Ethan let out a quiet breath. Still getting used to it. I moved here to reset my life, I guess. But the reset hasn't exactly gone according to plan. Liam's eyes softened. New starts can be brutal. You think leaving everything behind will instantly fix things, but sometimes it just leaves you feeling suspended. Ethan was struck by the accuracy of the observation. Exactly. It's like I hit pause on everything, but nothing else paused with me. Their conversation unfolded with surprising ease. They spoke about work stress, hobbies they wished they had time for, and the strange emptiness large cities often carried. Liam shared stories from his own move years ago, stories filled with quiet insecurities and moments of unexpected failure. It surprised Ethan how openly he spoke. Liam didn't present himself as flawless, he presented himself as human. The more Liam shared, the more Ethan felt seen in ways he hadn't in months. As they rested against the edge again, Ethan noticed a subtle tension in Liam's expression, a faint hesitation behind his calm voice. There's something I should probably tell you, Liam said eventually. Before this becomes confusing. Ethan's stomach sank, though he didn't understand why. Okay. Liam exhaled carefully, as though choosing his words. I'm in a relationship. Have been for a few years. The admission landed gently but heavily. Ethan felt warmth drain from his chest, replaced by something cold and sharp. Oh. I didn't know. I figured you didn't. Liam's tone was apologetic, not defensive. His name is Daniel. Things between us have been complicated lately. Not terrible. Just distant. Ethan looked away, uncertain what to say. He didn't owe Liam anything, yet the confession felt like an invisible line being drawn between them, a line Ethan hadn't realized he'd been inching toward. I'm not trying to give you the wrong impression, Liam added. I just didn't want to hide it. You've been easy to talk to, and I guess that made me forget for a moment that I needed to mention it. Ethan appreciated the honesty, even as discomfort churned inside him. Thanks for telling me. I don't want to step into anything messy. Liam smiled faintly, though a shadow lingered in his eyes. I'm not asking for anything. Really. But sometimes life puts people in our path at weird moments. Maybe I just needed someone to talk to who isn't expecting anything from me. Ethan understood that feeling more deeply than he wished to admit. For the rest of the evening, their conversation remained gentle but guarded. The warmth between them still flickered, but now it was edged with caution. Ethan tried to remind himself that emotional attraction, even quiet and unspoken, could drift into dangerous territory if not handled carefully. As they prepared to leave, Liam dried his hair with a small, thoughtful frown. If you ever want to talk, he said, slipping his bag over his shoulder, I'm usually here around the same time. No pressure, of course. Ethan nodded, unsure whether the invitation comforted him or unsettled him. Yeah. Maybe I'll see you. Liam gave a final, lingering look before heading toward the exit. Ethan stood alone for a moment, towel in hand, wrestling with a truth he didn't want to acknowledge. Loneliness had opened the door, but connection, unexpected, complicated connection, was what tempted him to walk through it. As he stepped into the cool night air, he sensed that this new bond, whatever it was, wasn't going to fade quietly. And whether he liked it or not, something was already shifting. Ethan Parker couldn't sleep that night. The memory of Liam Carter's glance lingered like a faint, persistent echo. He tried to convince himself it was nothing, just the nerves of a first day, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Liam's discerning gaze, calm yet oddly intense, as if it had penetrated deeper than mere professionalism. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office early, hoping to focus entirely on work. The project was already demanding, with reports to review and presentations to prepare. He immersed himself in spreadsheets and graphs, forcing his thoughts away from Liam, yet every so often, his mind drifted to the chief's calm voice and the subtle way he had listened to Ethan's questions. There was something magnetic in that attention, a pull Ethan didn't fully understand. By mid-morning, the office buzzed with the usual energy. Colleagues moved between desks, phones rang, and the soft clatter of keyboards filled the air. Ethan's concentration was steady until a shadow fell over his workspace. Looking up, he found Liam standing there, casual but precise, holding a folder of documents. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" Liam asked, his voice smooth, professional, yet layered with a warmth that made Ethan's stomach tighten. "Of course, sir," Ethan replied, clearing some papers from his desk. Liam leaned over slightly, pointing to a section of the project Ethan had prepared. Their hands brushed briefly as they discussed details. The contact was fleeting, innocent, and yet enough to send a spark through Ethan. He could feel his pulse quicken, and he struggled to maintain his usual composure. As they worked, the conversation drifted beyond the project. Liam shared insights about his approach to leadership, describing challenges he faced managing the team, the pressure to deliver results, and the unexpected loneliness that came with responsibility. Ethan listened, fascinated not only by the wisdom in Liam's words but also by the subtle vulnerability he rarely showed. "I never realized how much pressure a chief has to handle," Ethan admitted, a quiet honesty creeping into his voice. Liam smiled, the kind of small, almost private smile that made Ethan feel as though he were part of a secret. "It's not always easy," Liam said. "Sometimes it feels like the weight of everyone else's expectations rests on your shoulders. That's why it's important to have someone who listens, someone who notices the little things." Ethan's mind raced. The statement felt personal, and he wondered if it was meant that way. He reminded himself to focus, professional boundaries, ethics, but the warmth in Liam's eyes made it difficult to think clearly. Over the next hour, their interaction remained professional yet carried a subtle undercurrent of familiarity. Shared laughter at minor office mishaps, nods of mutual understanding, and the occasional glance that lingered longer than necessary built a quiet intimacy. Ethan's heart felt both exhilarated and conflicted. He enjoyed the attention, yet he knew he needed to tread carefully. By lunchtime, Ethan stepped away to clear his head. He wandered to the rooftop terrace, sipping water and watching the city below. His thoughts kept returning to Liam, not in a way he could easily explain, but as an undeniable force he could not ignore. Ethan realized he was intrigued, drawn in by Liam's presence and the unspoken connection growing between them. When he returned to his desk, Liam was standing nearby, reviewing documents. Their eyes met briefly, and Ethan caught a flicker of acknowledgement, a look that seemed both casual and loaded with meaning. His chest tightened. Ethan sat down, forcing himself to focus, yet the tension from their earlier conversation lingered. It was a silent acknowledgement that something had shifted, even if neither would speak of it directly. He knew one thing: the day had changed him. Something about Liam had unsettled him, drawn him in, and left him questioning boundaries he had never imagined testing. As the afternoon wore on and the office began to quiet down, Ethan packed his bag, heart still fluttering from the encounters of the day. The pull of curiosity, the thrill of connection, and the weight of morality pressed against him all at once. "I shouldn't feel this way," Ethan murmured to himself, stepping toward the elevator. "But I can't ignore it, and I'm not sure I want to." The doors slid closed, leaving him with a head full of questions and a story that was only beginning to unfold.